Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm Eda Bayar, and I'm working at the European Environment Agency as an expert in the freshwater and marine team. So it's a real pleasure to see such a broad, diverse audience in the room today, and colleagues from EU institutions, international organizations, NGOs, industry, regional and local authorities. So that diversity already reflects the essence of this session's topic. The ocean is a shared space, shared by many actors and shaped by them and their interests and responsibilities. And we have just heard from Commissioner Cadiz, and for me, two elements stood out. First, the ambition behind the Ocean Pact and its implementation by the Ocean Act. And the second, Commissioner's intention to move towards a more integrated framework to keep marine policy instruments, notably the Marine Strategy Framework Directive and Maritime Special Planning Directive, and integrating them under one roof. So this signals to points to a direction towards greater coherence, coordination, and strategic alignment on how Europe shapes and governs its seas. So this session we are going to do now is designed to build directly on that framing. So rather than revisiting the policy itself, we are going to see how it is implemented and put into practical meaning for different actors. So, for example, what does it mean for the industry and investments? What does it mean for health and nature protection? And what does it mean for us? How do these dimensions interact in practice? So I'm confident that today we are going to leave this session with one takeaway message. And because our panelists in this room are going to bring a wide range of perspectives from their backgrounds. And it's important for everyone because it's about ocean health, which underpins Europe's blue economy, supports competitiveness, and directly affects the well-being of the European citizens. So our discussion will also explore the interdependencies between ocean health and competitiveness. We will look at what makes sustainable competitiveness in blue economy possible, how policies can be translated into effective action on the ground, and how they can deliver tangible and positive impacts. And we will also touch on the enabling mechanisms that make this possible, including the governance approaches, the new strategies, and maybe funding instruments. So in terms of structure, we are going to have 3 rounds. And with the first round, we are going to set the scene from different institutional and sectoral perspectives. Then we are going to move into a deeper dive, looking at the specific domains and practical implications. Then we are going to close with a future-looking session, what will matter most in the coming years. And then we are going to open the floor for your questions and bring your perspectives, questions, and reflections into the conversation. So let me now move to inviting our panelists to the stage and briefly introduce them. So today we are joined by Christophe Clergeau, the member of European Parliament and Vice President of Socialists and Democrats Group in charge of Green Deal. Welcome. And he's the chair of Seas, Rivers, Islands, and Coastal Areas, meaning CIRICA Intergroup, drawing on experience as a local elected officer, including supporting the development of marine renewable energy in the port of Nantes-Saint-Nazaire. And he brings a political territorial perspective on the ecological and energy transition of Europe's maritime sectors. Welcome. And next, we are joined by Ms. Veronica Manfredi, who is the Directorate for Zero Pollution, Water Resilience, and Green Urban Transition within DG Environment. Her directorate is responsible for key policies on clean and well-managed water, contributes to Europe's zero pollution ambition, and supports international cooperation through regional sea conventions and major river commissions. And next, we are joined by Christophe Yvetot, the head of office and representative of the European Union and United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. Welcome. With more than 25 years of experience as a United Nations diplomat, he works at the intersection of industrial development, innovation, and sustainability, with a focus on building inclusive, resilient, and competitive blue industries through international cooperation. And finally, we are joined by Nicolas Fournier, who leads Oceana's campaigns on marine habitats, protection, and coordinates advocacy efforts on ocean biodiversity, destructive fishing practices. And with extensive experience across sustainable fisheries, seafood traceability, marine biodiversity protection, and offshore activities, he brings a strong conservation civil society perspective to our discussion. Now let's begin our discussion. So as I said, we are going to set the scene now, and I would like to ask our guests, could you give us a short introduction to your organization? From your perspective, how does the EU Ocean Pact translate into concrete benefits, both for ocean health and competitiveness of Europe's blue economy? Ms. Manfredi, we can start.
Thank you so much. So first of all, a very warm welcome to everyone. It's indeed, I think, my third time at the third Sustainable Blue Economy Conference, which marks the full commitment of the colleagues in DG Environment that I have the pleasure to represent here today to this Sustainable Blue Economy agenda, which represents close to 2% of the EU's GDP. An increasingly amount of gross added value, and I think an economy that we should really sustain, especially in this different world, as the moderator nicely put, in which we live. I think it's self-intuitive that we have all interest, even more interest if possible today than 3 years ago, to secure that our oceans are in good health and continue to provide an excellent basis for our resilience as a continent. My directorate, so the Directorate for Zero Pollution, Water Resilience, and Green Urban Transition, as you can imagine, has multiple points of connection with the sustainable blue economy. The most obvious one is the fact that it is the Directorate of the Commission that is working on the revision of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, an undertaking that we are, of course, piloting hand in hand with our excellent colleagues in DG Mare, led by Commissioner Cadiz. So Commissioner Cadiz and Commissioner Rosval are working really together in order to deliver an Ocean Act, which is the result of an excellent coordination across different pieces of the acquis. The Commissioner mentioned several ocean-related policies and acts that have to give the birth to what I would call, rename, the Ocean Compass. So what matters is that we are clear into the coordinated direction of travel, what are the key targets to be achieved collectively. And of course, you can expect from us, in particular, to attach a lot of importance to things such as support also a sound implementation of the nature restoration regulation. It's obvious, nature restoration is very blue by design. But generally, the department contributes very much under the pollution prevention dimension, and we know how much pollution is an issue for our oceans, both from eutrophication, so nitrous pollution, and chemical pollution. And we count very much also on the sustainable blue actors to be drivers of change from that perspective. I would also not underestimate the importance of green urban transition, because indeed we tend to forget it a lot, but I think the Commissioner was very right in reminding us that we have a big amount of citizens living at 50 kilometers distance from the coast. And I must say, indeed, under the green urban transition agenda, we see an increasing amount of coastal areas, coastal cities that subscribe to our agenda for green leaves, green capital, green city accord, because they see the interest of accelerating their path towards the twin transition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we heard from policy development and implementation. Now, if we move to Mr. Clergeau, what do you say?
Okay, thanks for the invitation. Good morning to all. First, I am here as the chair of Syrica Intergroup. It's a cross-party intergroup trying to put the ocean at the top of the agenda of the European Parliament. And it's not so easy. We have to work across all the committees. and to try to set a coherent agenda to achieve our common goals. First, we have a kind of blue momentum because we do not have so much positive legislation at European level. And having the Ocean Pact and now the Ocean Act is a good opportunity. But now we want to have it as concrete action and not anymore as nice pieces of paper. And I love your concept of Ocean Compass because it is dealing with concrete implementation. And Commissioner Cadiz called for urgent action. I think we are really in a question of emergency. I think nobody realizes exactly how strongly we rely on the ocean for our day-to-day life, but also for our economy, and our sea is really at risk as a carbon sink, at risk as a reservoir of biodiversity, and at risk if you just have in mind what could be the effects on the rising level of oceans on a lot of different activities. So now the zero pollution agenda, but globally the transition, the Green Deal agenda is totally key for ocean, and our future out of blue economy depends on the health restoration of the ocean. Second element, yes, we need a single governance framework for the ocean. Commissioner Cadiz talked about integrated. You talked about articulation. So we clearly advocate as MEP for a single regulation in Ocean Pact, replacing MSPD and MSFD to have a coherent governance of the ocean and not balancing biodiversity, climate, and economy, but integrating both to secure a capacity to really restore the ocean and develop the human activities at seas in a sustainable way. So we don't need any more articulation. We need to replace existing legislation by a single one based on ecosystemic approach. And last element, we need a blue MFF. We need money. But it's not only about money, it's about coordination of the different action and integrated vision of the ocean through all the European public policies. We are dealing with, yes, research and innovation, yes, fisheries, yes, regional policy, cohesion policy, but also security and defense, but also connectivity, but also military mobility, but also external action. So when we are talking about an ocean compass, it should be a key transversal element of the MFF, and it should be promoted by Ursula von der Leyen in coherence with a commitment in setting the Ocean Pact. And the feeling we have, and these are my last words, that now the Commissioner Cadiz is a little bit alone to really push this integrated action, this ambitious vision. The Commission decided to have the Ocean Pact and the Ocean Act. Now the Commission has to act in coherence with that vision on MFF and on governance tool and concrete implementation. That are the key messages from the Parliament.
Thank you very much for this strong message. And from a political leadership, of course, we need money to implement. And now moving to the international cooperation, Mr. Rito, what would be your message? Thank you.
No, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us here. I would say that Mr. Cadiz is not alone because he has UNIDO to support him also, and the European Union. We are the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and while the term industry might be sometimes, means maybe for many people the contrary of, ocean health, all our mandate is really to clean industry, to make industry not polluting, and making sure that industrial activities don't pollute the ocean, but go more and more to a regenerative industry that gives more back to the nature that it takes. So we have 173 member states, And we have a very strong partnership with the European Union. We work in around 120 countries together with the financing of the European Union. We have a strong partnership with DG Environment. Particularly, we're a member of the Global Alliance on Circular Economy and Resource Efficiency. We have a partnership, of course, with DG INPA for the external dimension. In UNOC 3, we were together to launch our framework, which is totally aligned with the EU Ocean Pact, which is our blue economy framework, which includes also a blue port framework. And we were together with DG Mare when we launched it at the UNOC 3. But also we had our general conference. We brought all 173 governments a few months ago, end of November, and we had the honor and the privilege to have the Commissioner Sikela for international partnerships coming to UNIDO and supporting our blue economy policy. In summary, what is important is that we have to combine ocean health, stopping all this pollution, making sure no effluent is brought to the sea, making sure also that in the fishery we maintain also the resources, etc. But we need jobs. And most of the jobs are also linked with the ocean. 80% of the trade is on industrial products, and 80% or more of the trade is made through the oceans. So this is key to work together on this. And through our blue port policy, we would like also to make the connection between the activities at sea, the entrance, of course, or export hub, which are the ports, and how to build around the port and the cities around, as you said, to build really a partnership for doing those activities in a circular and a clean way, and supporting jobs, because anyway, we need to, that's the difficulty. That's why we had the Green Deal and then the Clean Industrial Deal. And I would say UNIDO is really supporting those efforts of the European Union to make them global. And I will finish with this. The Commissioner reminded the extent of the maritime territory of the European Union. But it's not only in Europe, it's global, because you have territories in the Pacific, in the Latin America, and the Caribbean. And for us, it's so important, because if the EU brings a bit those efforts at a higher level, that's also an opportunity for many other countries to work together with the European Union. We know how geopolitics are. But I can tell you, I went to various, we had our 173 member states. Everyone wants to cooperate with the EU. We had the BBNG that entered into force in September. You remember we were in Nice in June saying in a couple of months it will happen. It has happened. So let's not be depressed, but I think that this effort of the EU toward the Ocean Pact is a big opportunity to work more together with most of the countries of the world that still want to do cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for transparently putting out all the trade-offs there and importance of collaboration. And also, it's very nice to have EU as leading in this front. Thank you. So we are moving to Mr. Fournier now.
Thanks very much, Nicolas Fournier. I work for Oceana. We are an international marine conservation group, the largest one exclusively focused on ocean conservation. So I'm very pleased to be here and providing thoughts about this. On your question whether the Ocean Pact has delivered, I think my answer is no. I mean, not yet. It's only a communication that was proposed or adopted by the Commission 6 months ago. It contains interesting steps in the right direction, but also critical gaps to address. So I think the Ocean Act, upcoming Ocean Act, is really the key to see how this ambition is going to translate for both ocean health, but also competitiveness and supporting coastal communities. A couple of things that we think the Ocean Act should contain to deliver that. Because if the Ocean Act falls short of ambition, there will not be any benefits for coastal communities. And some of the statements or from Commissioner Cadiz this morning were are a bit concerning for us. For instance, it's very important that the Ocean Act, in our opinion, contains legally binding targets. Commissioner said this morning it's not going to contain any new obligations. And then my question, a bit provocatively, is what's the point then? I mean, we're creating new legislation that will not add value. And internationally, it's also affecting our credibility. So I think for us, it's key that we have international targets that we enshrine in that legislation and we set the direction of travel. We need those targets legally binding to drive policy action. We know that. Voluntary targets so far haven't delivered when it comes to nature conservation, for instance. We also want the Ocean Act to boost implementation, to enhance enforcement. It's really key. We have a lot of existing obligations, that's right, that are not implemented. And I think the Ocean Act can bring this coherence, and I think that's a key point. But we need to have both. We need to have enforcement implementation and also new targets that kind of drive policy action. Because as a previous speaker said, we are at a turning point. We know the degradation of ecosystem is vast. I mean, your agency, the Environmental European Agency, I think estimated that 93% of European seas are impacted by human activities. Even in the most remote and the most deep oceans. So we have impacts by our activities, and at the moment, the degradation of ecosystem is affecting this ocean health. So there's a momentum around how ocean health is important, not just for health and environment, but also for supporting businesses and activities. I mean, we work a lot on fisheries. I mean, without healthy ecosystem, there's no fish and there's no fishers. So it's clear, but I think how to translate that is missing at the moment. So we have to turn a bit that vicious circle of degradation, and that's done by setting ambitious political targets. It's also done by reconciling some inherent sort of incompatibilities. There are some activities, industrial activities, that have a negative impact on our ecological capacity of ocean. So we have to address that. And that's also important to mainstream this concept of ocean health at the center of policy making. For now, we have siloed legislation. Ocean health is on the side, but we need to make that more prominent and central, so it drives policy action. And at the moment, that's a bit our expectation, that the Ocean Act puts ocean health at the center, high and above. And I also echo a bit what Mr. Clergeau said. We need also political support, more than from Mr. Cadiz, because the ocean is receiving, all of the sectoral policies. So I think it's really key that we place this higher up, and we have big expectations for the Ocean Act to deliver. And yeah, I think we're gonna keep pushing and asking for those things. But I think we have to turn the tide and take this opportunity for Europe to also politically drive this internationally. I mean, at this unstable times, the Commission and the EU has a place to take, I think, to take a global leadership on ocean conservation, and we hope that the Ocean Act will be this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing also the critical eye. And I would like to, on this note, add that the call for evidence is still going on for the Ocean Act, and I've been monitoring, so you can add your input there. Thank you. So we can move now to the second round of our questions. So I'd like to ask Mr. Clergeau, from the Parliament's perspective, how can the Ocean Pact support a united and resilient Europe by guiding the ecological and energy transition of Europe's blue sectors, especially wider maritime industry?
Thanks. First, I would like to support what Nicolas Fournier just said. It's very important to have these binding targets, its enforcement. For example, to save life program in MFF and to protect the role of NGOs that is under attack of EPP, the right and the far right, in European Parliament and at European level, undermining democracy. Then to move to industry. And I won't talk about port, because I will be in an event about port, a Serica event in the Parliament in 1 hour. So I will perhaps have to leave before the end of this panel. But really to focus on maritime industry. The first time I went in Brussels, I was first vice president of my region. And I was coming to defend the possibility for the region to fund innovation in shipyard. And we were supposed to close shipyards. close shipyards. It was supposed to be a kind of old industry to disappear. And then we have a very strong shipyard in Saint-Nazaire. Yes, building greener cruise ships, but also building some key elements for marine renewable energy substations, and also developing wind-assisted propulsion. So yes, the existing industry, the old maritime industry, has to be supported because it's crucial for Europe, but also because it's the starting point for the future diversification, developing of green technologies. And to be very concrete, we have to defend Europe against unfair competition and against economical attacks. Because then again, we are under attack, we are under Asian and not only Chinese attack, and we have to defend ourselves, to defend the sectors in which we have the leadership. So for example, cruise ships. For example, also the emerging wind-assisted propulsion new sector. We have the leadership in Europe, but also to reconquer some capacity of building ships. And the shipyard industries Europe at European level clearly identified two segments that we can reconquer. It's about ferries, green ferries, but it's also about short sea shipping boats. And in the United States, for example, all the boats mobilized in short sea shipping have to be built in the United States. So why not in Europe? So we need very strong sectoral industrial policy, and we add steel or chemical sectoral plan. We need a kind of sectoral plan for blue industry and for shipping. So we will have in a few days the maritime industrial strategy. I hope it will be nice, but once again, when we have the communication from the Commission, we need the implementation plan just behind, and really capacity to combine all the tools we have to help the sector to face unfair competition, to increase its competitiveness, and to be able to become or still be concrete leaders. So we need to invest. If we want to build more ships in Europe, we need some more capacities in the ports, but it's expensive and it's quite new to rebuild industrial capacities for shipping in the boats. And once again, excuse me, we need a blue MFF. We need a full recognition on these maritime issues at the core of each public policies in MFF. And what you said about the crucial role of maritime routes in our economy, it means that maritime security, maritime sovereignty is key for each region in the world. We need cooperation at international level. We need multilateralism and not economic war, but we need to be able to be sovereign when we are dealing with maritime issues, and that means to be really offensive and to have sectoral plan, integrated approach, combining regulation and financing in close link with industrial, embedded in this sustainable strategy for the oceans.
Thank you very much. I think it's very important to have the independence when it comes to maritime decarbonization. And so building on your question, actually, I would like to move to Mr. Ivto. How about UNIDO's work on sustainable, inclusive blue industries? How can the Ocean Pact drive innovation, job creation, or maybe untap these funding mechanisms and create resilient value chains, so especially in areas such as ports or emerging blue technologies?
No, thank you. I think, as was said, of course, legislation and norms are very important. However, you cannot be alone, and it should bring also others in having also raising, I would say, the level. And for this, cooperation is very important. You know, many countries are also looking for, you know, I was based in Senegal, covering West Africa during the COVID. And when you had interruption of industrial value chains, the food, medical product, pharmaceutical products, etc. Everyone has understood, even before now the geopolitics, that each country needs to be more resilient. And the port and what you have at the port is the relation between the hinterland and and the other countries. So I think each one needs to do their policies. But many are interested in, for example, we help Indonesia, a big country, to do their blue economy policy. We've done that in cooperation also with the European Union, with other countries. So it can be done not aggressively against others, it's just to each country to see what they need to be resilient, and also to have a kind of sharing also the value, because in developing countries, many times the port has been a place just to ship, the raw material, and with little value for those countries. So now, with the Global Gateway, there's also this idea to share the value. So it means that the ports can become also industrial hubs, also in developing countries, to do the first transformation, adding value, creating jobs. Also, it's for us a big opportunity also for cooperation between Europe and developing countries. Europe has everything: science, knowledge, experience, technologies, capital. And this is, I think, a big opportunity, and there's a lot of needs, but as has been said, we need a blue MFF with also international cooperation that includes those issues. Because, for example, we work, as I said, in 120 countries with the financing with the European Union. We do a lot of circular economy, many things linked to jobs and the environment, but there's little in this, for example. So how could what we've done with Indonesia, how could we do it with so many countries that will adopt this same ambitious, holistic approach of the blue economy? Countries are ready, but let's also put some investment in this. And not only public investment, because through this, if we really have a holistic approach, multi-stakeholder approach, we can also bring the private sector. If you give a good signal to the private sector, they will invest. But you need for this the sign, long-term, also, I would say, a vision that then private sector say, okay, it's worth investing in this. So we need this legislation, we need the cooperation, we need, of course, some investment, and we hope the MFF will bring this also so that we can have this better cooperation also with the rest of the world.
Thank you very much. Actually, I was going to ask you what helps industry move from policy signals to actually investing. But I think you kind of answered maybe, but would you like to add more to this?
How to?
What helps the industry move from these policy signals into actual investments?
So, for example, you have a lot of countries that would like to create, we help countries to establish around the ports also what we call special economic zones or eco-industrial parks. It's the new way of doing industrial parks with a high environmental performance. And they would like, instead of shipping the raw material, agricultural, mining, and with no jobs locally, how to work together with European investors that can come and invest in those parks to create local value, create jobs. I was posted in Senegal. We created an eco-industrial park, also with the support of the European Union. And people were a bit doubtful at the beginning. And then we started to have 10, 20 companies creating 1,000 jobs. Now there are more than 60 companies. Many jobs are created, companies not only from Europe, but for the rest of the world. And if you have a good governance on the emissions, on how to create industrial symbiosis, on how to develop a circular economy, how to manage energy waste, etc., you can have a very good model that works both for European investors, because you have European companies going there, creating jobs, creating value for Europe, but also for the country. So I think if you give the good signal, companies cannot work in an environment when it changes every year. So that's why I'm very happy that now, I hope, with this Ocean Pact, we will have maybe a more holistic and coordinated approach in the EU, because EU is a very good partner for countries. Why? Because once it has been decided by 27 countries, it's a bit difficult to change, and that gives for countries a good signal. So we hope it will be ambitious and generous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So actually, what you say is very important from economical point of view, but everything comes with a cost, right? So by doing this, we are putting some pressures on the environment. And I would like to ask Ms. Manfredi, from the zero pollution and quality of life perspective, how does the Ocean Pact help connect ocean health with everyday benefits for citizens, such as cleaner water, healthier ecosystems, and improved quality of life?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I would say that the kind of business models that both Mr. Clégeot and Mr. Ito have been talking about does not necessarily come with a big cost on environment. It's precisely the point that we are trying to make here. We are trying to generate sustainable maritime industry, sustainable public-private partnerships. So I would refute the point of departure, and it's today that we don't have yet maybe that as sustainable maritime industry and so on, and actually we have been even putting in danger some of the current maritime industry without thinking of how to transforming it into a green, that there is a cost. So if I may, indeed, I would like to inject a bit of optimism in the sense that admittedly the situation right now is not perfect, but I want to bring to the fore a couple of data. Number one, we have now 4 member states who have decided collectively to increase the marine protected areas up to 30% and beyond. Germany, France, Belgium, the Netherlands. We have another bunch of 4 member states who have already designated marine protected areas beyond 20% of their territorial waters. Lithuania, Denmark, Poland, Romania. These are people that have to be followed. We have targets, and here I just would like to say to Nicolas that of course I sympathize a lot with. When I hear the commissioner saying it's about articulating the targets, it's because admittedly there are already quite a bit that come from the legislation that we have adopted also in the past mandate. If you look at the entire Fit for 55 and the entire nature restoration regulation, and admittedly there is scope for spelling out certain environmental targets a bit more under the MSFD, but I think that the direction of travel, good status, is set. We have not achieved it by 2020, admittedly, but I think that where we want to go is pretty clear. And there is the water resilience agenda that we are not connecting very much. I'm always a little bit troubled when I hear colleagues of the ocean not connecting with the freshwater agenda and vice versa, always being the ocean agenda into the freshwater. These two systems are intimately connected, and whilst I agree with the Honourable Member Clégeot that there is always scope for having an even bluer MFF, and I count on the European Parliament and the Council to secure that the MFF is as blue as it needs to be, I think it's a good signal that the European Commission has decided in its totality to secure that as a minimum 35% of the entire close to I don't remember ever the figure, but I mean over 2 trillion euro budget has to be devoted to environmental and climate target. How can you have environmental climate target without touching the lifeline of our economy, which is the blue part of it? So for me, it's also a call for member states under the national pillar to come up with projects and investment that are in the right direction of travel. Because if I were to say the key word that this new MFF brings into is responsabilization. Yes, the Commission kind of holds the key under the control of the European Parliament of the budgetary spending, but essentially is asking the member states to be clear into where they want to put the money. Under the competitiveness pillar, the Commission is launching the challenge of saying, it's up to you to show that you can make the clean industrial model of the future, the most competitive ones, against unfair competition, coming also from abroad, but apart from the unfair competition. So it's a call for being also, I would say, full with imagination, developing actions both bottom-up and top-down that reflect the direction of travel that I think has been spelled out in the competitiveness compass, in the Clean Industrial Deal, in the bioeconomy strategy, in the upcoming Clean Circular Economy Act. So I personally don't see that we are necessarily contradicting ourselves that much. And it is not a coincidence that the water resilience strategy and the Ocean Pact have been literally adopted by the college with 1 day of distance. The colleagues have been working a lot behind to secure that these two work strands are increasingly perceived as two metals of the same story. And as you know, under the water resilience, we underline all the time that it's not just the blue, it's also the green part. Our water is stored like in biggest parts where the vegetation is. So the importance also to transform our cities so they become increasingly also a little bit more sponge city. The cycle is so connected. Without the ocean, first we don't get oxygen. The European Environment Agency always reminds us that every second breath of oxygen we take comes from the ocean. Without a proper evaporation cycle, basically the entire water cycle is broken. So we have to look at things holistically and secure that the projects that come to life look at this in a clever manner. I must say that I'm also encouraged by other facts. Together with the colleagues of the European Environment Agency and the Joint Research Center, we are working hard already for the third edition of the Zero Pollution Monitoring and Outlook report, but already the past one was showing, for example, a decrease of plastic pollution in just 10 years, which is surpassing 35%. It means that when we are clear about things as Europeans we do not want to continue seeing at sea, we do manage to change. So it's also a matter of political clarity, civil society engagement, and everyone doing its bit. I was recently at an event, indeed, on zero pollution and T-shirts coming from, again, third countries, full with microplastics that enter everywhere in the cycle, including at sea. And the question was asked to me by an NGO. I'm very happy that the NGO said that. But my reply was also, what are you concretely doing to increasingly raise the awareness of citizens about how crucial is the consumer choice that they make when they go for a T-shirt made of microplastics versus a T-shirt made of organic cotton? So there is a lot to be done, I would say, collectively, to change this direction of travel. I'm personally rather positive. I personally continue to look at the work around the Ocean Act as something that is forcing all the all the services of the European Commission that have a stake on ocean matters. And as you can imagine, it's many of us to secure that we look at this act as something that allows to make the best out of targets that many cases already exist, or can be fine-tuned to secure that the trajectory stays indeed precisely for the companies, I would say, but also for the citizens, predictable, firm, and clear for the decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's important. Yeah. Have a nice meeting. So we know that we are going to now have this already dialogue between MSPD and MSFD now, and then Ocean Act bringing this under the same roof. I think it's a good initiative to have this dialogue, actually. So moving to Mr. Fournier, from the perspective of ocean conservation, what kind of nature-based solutions need to be prioritized to ensure that the Ocean Pact strengthens the biodiversity and marine habitats while supporting the coastal communities?
Thanks. Before answering that point or question on nature-based solution, I just wanted to make maybe an answer to the previous questions you asked on what's driving also investment. Because interestingly, I mean, we're calling for legally binding targets, and we've seen progress around that. Recently, I saw that the European Environmental European Investment Bank has released a study stressing the main driver for investors to invest in nature positive action is actually regulatory considerations. And so by far, so having clear regulations is actually providing that certainty and clarity, and it's driving also financial investors and corporations to invest. So I think we see it as a driver for political action, but as also sort of a more corporation driver. And I think this is something that is not necessarily, I wasn't aware of that. So I think it's key to have it in mind. Now back on the nature-based solution, I mean, we have tools that are low-tech and can deliver multiple benefits. One of them is marine protected areas. So Mrs. Manfredi mentioned that some countries are exceeding or advancing on designation of marine protected areas, and that's great. The majority of the EU is still, unfortunately, falling short. I mean, we haven't met our international targets, and the projections are not positive. So very likely the EU isn't going to meet the 2030 target of having 30% of its waters protected. And it's regrettable because we know it's a very efficient tool. The science has shown consistently that if you protect marine ecosystem, the benefits are multiple, not only for biodiversity or climate resilience, but also for sustaining activities that depends on healthy ecosystems. So tourism, we heard this morning, it's a big sector. Fishers. So there is a tool that is at the moment not optimal. We have 5,000 MPAs in Europe. 80% of them allow destructive fishing activities, mining, dredging, heavy infrastructures developed. So there is a problem of also we're losing on economic opportunities, because if we know that those protected areas, if they were well protected and well managed, they would deliver benefits also for coastal communities, fishers, for instance. So we also hope that the Ocean Act can fix that problem and boost the management and the protection of marine protected areas. There's a simple correlation. The higher the level of protection, the larger the benefits for climate resilience, fisheries abundance, and also socioeconomic benefits. So we have examples all across Europe where fishers are benefiting, recreational users, anglers, boats, wildlife watchers, I mean, are using marine protected areas, and that generates a lot of revenues. It provides also employment opportunities. In some places, there's also increase of tax and revenues for local authorities and local businesses. So it's really a virtuous circle that we can break. But for that, we need to have like proper enforcement and proper implementation. So nature-based solution, marine protected areas are key. We hope that the Ocean Act can help address that by also clarifying that certain activities that are basically incompatible with the concept of conservation cannot happen inside MPAs. So bottom trawling, destructive fishing, dredging, mining, oil and gas exploration. We have many member states where you have oil and gas exploitation inside protected areas. So in Europe, we basically have protected areas that don't protect. It's a nonsense, it's a paradox, and the Ocean Act has to fix this. And so maybe I can mention briefly another sort of nature-based solution, which is also, we hope that the Ocean Act can look at this tool. It's called preferential access area. So it's a tool to manage marine space, and particularly it's used in many low-income or middle-income countries, very, very less in Europe. And so by having those preferential access areas, you basically grant the right for certain activities, sustainable activities, to operate. So for instance, we could allocate the coastal areas for artisanal fishers. So it could help them, it would protect them from competing with large-scale industrial fishing, and that provides multiple benefits, not only for environmental, but also nutritious protection, employment opportunities. It has social benefits. So I think there are 44 countries around the world that have put in place those special restrictions where they push away certain industrial activities to reserve the space, the coastal waters, the territorial waters, to low-impact activities, and that creates those opportunities where we think it's one way of also reframing a public good. I mean, the ocean space is a public good, to reframe it and to prioritize ecologically relevant activities, but activities also that have multiple benefits for communities and help supporting coastal communities. So marine protected areas, as I said, preferential access areas are tools that exist that we can implement in Europe, and that would have multiple benefits for society and for prosperous communities.